Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Community America Credit Union. My name is Joel Goldberg. Good to be back with you here for another episode, and I've got a really fun one today, and I think some places we can dig into in terms of leadership and teamwork and scaling and growing, and in this case, in a very public way. My guest is the host and designer of Bargain Mansions, CEO and founder of Growing Days Home and Growing Days Design. If you've seen her on TV, you know exactly who I'm talking about, Tamara Day. If you're in Kansas City, maybe you've seen her around town. She's got a phenomenal show, and I told her this, and I'll reiterate it now, that I don't typically watch a lot of those type of shows. I'm already sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm in that sports world. Not that I couldn't be in both. Typically, my wife is watching those more, but Tamara has a show that I'm fascinated by, and I have no designing skills. I can't see the things she can, but I'm always just so fascinated to see the way she renovates these homes and what she's able to do with them. Not to mention the TV world. I understand that one, and all that goes into that. So we're going to talk about that and much more today. So I want to bring in right now, I think we've got her while she's not recording. Otherwise, she'll be extremely busy, which I want to talk about too, because these things don't happen in 1 hour. They take months and months and months to take place. So it's good to be joined.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you, Tamara?
Doing great. How are you, Joel?
I'm doing well, and I've told you, I love the show. There's just so much amazing vision in that. If people haven't seen it, they should check it out. I think most people have. But I want to ask you this question well before there was a TV show, and we'll talk about your dad too and the amazing chemistry that you guys have on screen and I assume off screen. But when did this passion for renovating homes, flipping homes, for having that vision? You see things. I don't know how you see these things. When did that develop? Was it at a young age?
I think it was. It's one of those things that as a kid, I didn't really have a way of verbalizing what it was I loved about creating and crafting. But my mom was super creative with all kinds of like food and things like that, more tactile kind of stuff. And my grandma was really crafty, like lots of needlepoint and crochet and that kind of stuff. And so they both really fed me a lot of that creativity of use what you have on hand to make something out of nothing. And growing up on a farm, my dad taught me, you just figure out how to do it yourself. And so when something breaks, you use what you've got on the farm to fix it. And that was kind of my whole upbringing, was just solve the problem. And I feel like it has really fed into everything I do with my career and my life, because these houses, it's solving problems, right? Like I do have a vision for the spatial and like, if we knock that down, then we can do this kind of stuff. But I think when I walk in, I know it can be solved. I never walk in and think that can't happen. Anything can happen. It just takes time and money, right? Like at the end of the day, anything is possible. So finding the solution that makes sense is, I think, what drives me. And I love that puzzle.
That's what it is. It's a puzzle in every way, right? And so is that something that, because that would stress me out if I saw all those things. I mean, I break stuff. I don't fix them. I don't build them. You break things too, and then you put them back together. I break them, and then I have to hire somebody to put them back together. So you have that talent, and I know you got a lot of that from your dad. And it looks like every time that I'm tuning in, you've got a sledgehammer or you're busting something up, which has to be a lot of fun. But you also have this bigger picture vision of all of those puzzle pieces too. Does that excite you? I mean, when you walk, like that would stress me out. But when you walk into a room, is it, oh my gosh, or is it, oh, wait a minute, and the light bulb goes off?
It's the, oh, wait a minute. Like I love that first time I walk through a house and just all the ideas. It's just the creativity is sparked. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but it's almost like the house talks to me. Like I walk in and I just have a feeling in the house of what it should be and what style it should be. And sometimes that is really obvious. You walk up to a house and it's Tudor and it has traditional bones, or you walk up to a colonial style home and it's going to have symmetry, right? Like there's things that dictate it, but then there's other houses that just don't really fit any mold, or people have changed it so much there's not really a style. And so I get to have a blank canvas, but I feel like I'm always looking to the history of the area and the home to kind of dictate where I'm going with the design and the aesthetic.
It's an interesting show too, because you have, I mean, I'm sure that with your skills, your on-camera presence, personality, every bit of it that makes the show successful, you could take it on the road. You could go anywhere. I'm assuming that has been a request at times, and you've very much made it a point, I think, of staying in Kansas City and doing this right here in your home. How important has that been?
That's huge. You know, I'm a mom of 4. There's no way I could travel and do this. These, like you said, it doesn't just happen in the hour on TV that it looks like, right? It's way harder than that. And, you know, yes, we do projects from coast to coast on e-design and virtual, but for me to physically be at houses across the country, it would just be impossible for me to film absolutely everywhere that we get requests. I get houses sent to me every day from fans on social media. They'll send me a picture of a house in their neighborhood or in their town that needs help. And it breaks my heart that I can't do it all, but I'm only one person.
Right. You can't do it all. It's a good opportunity for me to let everybody know that you can follow Tamara on Instagram at Tamara Day, TAMARADAY, and just hit the 80,000 mark. I remember when you and I went to lunch, we talked about this. You're like, I don't really even know how to work Twitter. I'm like, wait, what? But you live in such a visual world that Instagram to me was made for you, your show, your business, and we'll get into your business in just a little bit. That has to be a great way to be able to connect, hear from people, and showcase what you're doing.
It absolutely is. That's where I spend a ton of my time, both just because the posting takes so much time, right? Like it takes us a lot of time to create that content and put captions together that are meaningful. But then on the flip side, I'm there a lot for inspiration. And I go to other designers and I follow really great designers. And some of them are huge names. Some of them are just moms that are doing a great job, and a lot of artists as well. And so I'm going there for inspiration. And I love the scroll just like everybody else, and feel like there is a ton. I mean, right behind me, this wall here is one of my pin boards for projects. And I would bet 90% of these photos that are pinned to the wall are from Instagram.
And it's a good chance for you to see some things and get some ideas too, right? I mean, it's
Exactly.
not, you're learning every single day. So before I ask you about building a team, because I think that's the side of this, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is that obviously you can't do it all yourself. And there's been a process of scaling and getting to a point where you're running your business, and that none of this is easy. I'm guessing that you can walk into a house, and that's the easier part. Not the time, the budgeting, the resources, but the vision. That's the easy part. That's your natural skill. It's all the rest of it then while you're leveraging that, the business side of it. But what were the dreams when you were growing up? You said you had all that influence of your mom and your dad, and clearly that's helped make you who you are today. But in an ideal world, an 8-year-old Tamara, a 15-year-old Tamara, what were you thinking you wanted to be or do?
You know, I always wanted to be a mom. That was always what I looked forward to, is being a mom. And I have to say, it's still the most rewarding thing I do. And I love spending time with them, even though they're teenagers and they don't love spending time with me. But I am obviously the most embarrassing mom in town. So they like to be away from the embarrassment of the show. So I love being with them, though. I love hanging out with them, and just being a mom has always been my top priority. It never occurred to me that I would be doing something like this, and never even realized that being a designer was a possibility as a kid. You know, growing up in Salina, Kansas, it's not like there were designers working in everybody's houses. Like, it was not something that was really well known to me or my family, at least. And I didn't ever really realize that was a career path you could choose. And I probably never really thought much about it either. It was just something I enjoyed doing. And once I was in college, I got a communications degree at K-State. So I like to say I got a BS in BS, and I use it every day. And I feel like, had I known that design was an option, it was such an obvious choice for me back then. Every apartment and dorm, I was decorating it like crazy and painting and then repainting. And it was just what I loved doing. I loved buying glassware and dishes. And my friends were like, why would you spend your money on nice dishes? I'm like, I like pretty dishes. I don't know. It just was what I liked doing. And I was collecting shelter magazines even back then. And Martha was like the pinnacle of everything. So I wish that I had had an Instagram back then to know that this was something people did, but it just wasn't on my radar. And so until I was married and we were renovating our first home together, I did all of the design myself and picked everything and was pretty good at it. And neighbors asked for, hey, will you come help me with this or that? And I was like, sure. And just kept doing that over the years and realized, wait a minute, people get paid to do this. And well, how can I get paid to do this? And so it just kind of evolved over the years into this massive thing.
Before I ask you about your team, I have to go back to the kid thing, because I think you and I have this in common. One, our kids are around the same age. I think even my daughter may have known your oldest at one point, but through school and all that. But all of your friends, they may know it by now, but like all of your friends, all of my friends, or all of our kids' friends think, wow, they do this, they do that. I think it's the same for you. My kids don't think what I do is that big of a deal. No. Which in some ways is comforting, because it's just dad. And, so you said what you did about, being the most embarrassing mom. I thought that was my title, as the most embarrassing dad. The reminder that we all have that title with our kids too. I'm assuming it's the same way with you. Like, big deal, my mom's on TV, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, my boys, they remember before and what it was like before mom was on TV, and they know the after, and they were a little older. My daughter knows nothing else. And so it's just kind of, it's interesting to see it out of both of their perspectives, because the boys are kind of like, oh, somebody's talking to her again. Oh, how long is this going to take? And Nora's just like, oh, okay. It is what it is. And I guess at the pool the other day, a friend told me this. Nora was swimming, and another mom came up and said, is your mom? And she's like, yes, she's Tamara Day. Leave me alone. I'm swimming. And,
yeah. Not a big deal. Just what she does.
Yeah, that's my mom. Yeah. Because she's my clone. Anybody can recognize her.
Interesting. Well, and it's not that they don't think it's amazing what you're doing or what I'm doing. They just don't know any other way. Even though your boys knew another way, this is life. This is routine. Right. This is every day. And so the awkwardness, if you want to call it that, the oohs and ahs don't come from them. It comes from their friends. It comes from our friends. And then you hope that they get used to it too. That, to me at least, is always once the friends start coming over and stop the staring or the gawking or the nervousness, I'm like, I'm just a guy, just a normal guy. Everything's okay. And then every day, it's a job. We both happen to have amazing jobs that a lot of people would love to have. I don't ever lose sight of that. I'm sure you don't either, but it's work. It's great work. So let's talk about that, because you eventually end up on TV. That's not something that you ever expected. It took off and became wildly popular, not just here in Kansas City or the United States, but all over the world. And then there does become a certain point, and I think this is true for anybody when they find success, where it becomes more normal and you believe in yourself and hey, hopefully I'm good at this, and this is what I was meant to do. How long did that take for you?
I think through the whole process, we've been doing this for 5-6 years now, since the pilot started. And I remember thinking, why would they even want to talk? Like, why is this even happening? I don't even really like, they wanted to do it. I was like, well, it sounds like a fun opportunity. Like, we'll try that. But it really never occurred to me that we would be sitting right here at this point. And I don't think I ever projected it past like the next week or two, right? Like it'll be this blip in my life. My 15 minutes will be up and, it'll have been a fun thing I can remember. And then it just kept growing. And I remember, I think when I finally started going to speaking engagements and not feeling like I was about to die from panic was when it sunk in, hey, I'm okay at this. I know what I'm talking about. I can get on stage now. Like those first years, it was just miserable when I'd have to go speak in public. And I felt horrible. I didn't want to do it. I was like, what have I done to myself? And now I just start talking. I don't prep. I just show up and I know the answer to the questions. I know what people are going to ask and it's comfortable. And I think it took 2 or 3 years before it really sunk in. Okay, I've got this. I know what we're doing.
And then add in the fact that you've got a thriving business. I mean, this is not just, hey, this is the woman that jumps on TV and does these homes and flips them and all that. No, there's a whole business which taps into so many, I know, of your passions and expertise. So as I said, you can't do it all yourself. And you're ahead of me on this as I started my speaking career in the podcasting and all that, along with the baseball that I've started to learn. You and I talked about this, that you can't do it all yourself. But many of us can be control freaks and we have ways that we want to do things, but then you learn that you've got to be able to trust. You've got to be able to find the right people. Take me through that process, because there has to have been a point where you went from, hey, I can do this, to I need some help. I need a team and I've got to build a successful team.
Right. It was when the show started, I had a bookkeeper on my team that worked, a few hours a week. And I had 2 friends that were designers that would help me with stuff and help with projects. And then as season 1 started, it was so overwhelming. There was so much to be done. And I did do it all myself. And with their help, right? The bookkeeper and the 2 designers, and they all helped with everything. But on the backside, I was, running the daily numbers of what was happening. I was running every decision. I was sourcing it all and finding it all and inspiring it all, finding every house. And like, that's the piece that nobody really thinks about, of how much time it takes. The network says go, and we'll take 8 episodes. So you got to find 8 houses to do and then start, and you got to get it done in their time frame. And so it's a really condensed time frame. It's really, 18-hour days every single day. And when you're the only one doing everything, you don't sleep. You just keep moving and get it done. And at some point it was really the end of season 2 where I kind of hit my breaking point. I'm like, I just can't, this is going to kill me. I got to have some help, and really started investing in people around me and a CSO and really getting the right people around me, not just warm bodies around me, but the right people that could help me scale and grow. And, that's been a game changer. I wish I had done that sooner.
Well, it takes time to, and maybe that's what it is, that you have to hit, I wouldn't call it rock bottom, but that point where you're like, there's just not enough of me. There just aren't enough hours in the day. I mean, I found myself when I was regularly saying, I wish that there would be more than 24 hours in a day, that's probably some kind of sign of, it's time to scale a little bit. So how did you find building a team? We only see on TV who you're working with, which oftentimes is your dad and whoever else is involved in a project and the different people that you come into contact with. But how did you go about building this team as the leader of that team? And you have a brand, you have a culture, you wanted to, I'm sure, stay true to that. So what was that process like?
Well, I'd say your question also hits on one of your sports themed questions at the end of this, is the leadership piece. That's, you know, a ball that I would say I missed in the beginning. I never practiced leadership skills other than leading children, right? Like I have led 4 little people in life, but I haven't led a team in life. And so that was a ball at the very beginning that I really struggled with the whole piece of that leadership, being the leader. I'm like, no, I'm just me. You guys, you guys know better about what you're supposed to do than I know. And realizing, wait a minute, no, I know how I want it done, and I need to communicate that. And that's not being bossy or too direct. It's like, this has to happen, and this is why you're here. So let's get it done, and in a nice, respectful, and grateful way. And I think that creating a team atmosphere that's fun. And we have a blast. My team, we laugh all the time. And I'm jealous when I have to go film and they get to sit here and be laughing all day. And it's, great people, but they get stuff done, right? Like they do it and they do a great job. And it has been a huge thing for me. I listen to thousands of podcasts about leadership now. Like I'm constantly running leadership seminars on my radio in the car or in my earbuds every chance I get, because there's always opportunities to learn. Yep. And it's not a skill that I had honed previous to all of this, because it was never a need. I'd never needed to lead anybody before.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that so much too, because I've been surrounded by leaders my whole life. I mean, if I've been covering sports for 26 years, I've always been, whether it be the high school basketball coach or the head coach of the NFL football team, and everything in between. And well, some people maybe are natural born leaders, so I'll give them that. But I think I found myself early on sort of going the same route as you. I think this is what you're saying is, let me just let people do their job and give them that freedom, because I don't want to micromanage. But You still have to, you can touch those elements of it. You can be involved in all of that without micromanaging, and you have a responsibility to do that. That's what I'm learning, is if you want it a certain way, you have to be able to communicate that, but you have to do it in a way that people are going to respond to.
Right. And making it an atmosphere that it's okay to make mistakes in, because we're all human and everyone's going to make mistakes. And one of the things early on that I really appreciated in any of our employees, and it's a quality that I appreciate in life in general, is like, when you make a mistake, being able to own it, and being able not just to own it and say, yeah, I screwed up, but in business, I screwed up, and here's how I screwed up. Here's what I've learned from that, and here's my solution moving forward. So like, that's something I appreciate so much from my employees, is when they come to me and they're like, oops, but here's what we're going to do to fix it. Don't just bring me the problem, bring me the problem and how it's going to work out, because then we've learned something from it. We won't make that same mistake twice, and we'll grow.
Not to mention the fact that you don't need your team to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but you also can't afford the careless mistakes, because so often what you're doing is time sensitive. Right. I mean, the schedule that you're on, it is and can be so tight. I want to ask you about that in a moment, but let me hit the baseball themed questions. And I think we knocked one of them out already, but let's start with the home run. What's the biggest home run you've hit professionally?
Oh, without a doubt, moving over from DIY network to HGTV was a huge home run for me. We started out at DIY and did very well there. And then after season 2, there's this other couple that does some shiplap houses that you might know of, and they are getting their own network. And so Magnolia is taking over DIY network. That whole network is disappearing. And so it's all their own programming, and most shows on DIY were canceled. And we were really fortunate and had ratings good enough to move over to HGTV. And I think that was without a doubt the biggest home run.
And then I think you hit the swing and miss, unless there's anywhere else you want to go with it. But you talked a little bit about the leadership end. So are we covered there?
Yep. I think that was the swing and miss and the recovery.
and the recovery. which I say it all the time, that it's a good swing and miss if there's a recovery, because it means that you learn from it. Then the last baseball theme question would be small ball. What are the little things that add up to the home runs for you? Which I think it, could be certainly a question about your business and your culture and everything. It also very simply could be what happens when you go into one of these houses, because you're seeing all of these little things. And in the end, you have that end result, but which is the home run, right? But what is small ball to you?
I think it's all of those things, right? Like, I have so many facets of my business. We've got the retail store, we've got the design center with local designers that work locally and nationally, but then we also have e-design, where we work coast to coast, all virtually. So then we have the TV show, and then we have being a mom. And so I'd say the small balls is really my time. Right? Like, I've got so many minutes in every day, and it's so easy for those minutes to just slip away. My mom had a vase, and I used to have one as well. And then one of the kids broke it, of course, but it was a big clear vase full of rice and a walnut, and it symbolized the minutes in the day. And this was 1 grain of rice is every minute in the day. And these are the walnuts. And these are the important things, are these 4 kids. And how easily those can get buried in the minutes of the day, and you lose the opportunity to be with them. And so I've always thought of that in perspective with them, but also in my business. Like, what are the priorities, and making the most out of each minute in my day, and not just swiping up and looking at more pictures. Like, how am I going to use this time intentionally and schedule myself? And I think that the small balls are in those little minutes, and how we manage to take care of all the big things.
And that involves taking care of yourself too. And you've learned that.
I'm supposed to do that?
Right. See, you're wired the way I am, where you sometimes think that, wait a minute, I can't sacrifice this time to do this, but come on, sometimes you have to be able to unplug a little bit. That's why I'm going to attempt to go to the pool this afternoon before I go into work, and just shut down for a couple of hours. We'll see if it actually happens. I don't know. 4 final questions as we round the bases. We'll hit some different ones here. First one, just to give people an idea, because as much as I don't know your world, I know the TV world, and everybody thinks we just show up at the last minute and go, and it's not that simple. But in your case, there's so many more layers to it, because we essentially see the before and after. Well, we see some of as much as you could show in the middle. But let's just say that you're starting a project today for TV. And so we'll see everything over the course of an hour. What does that really look like in terms of time?
Well, in real time for the show, all the houses are running consecutively. So we've got all of them happening at the same time. But we may have 6 to 9 months to get all 8 to 14 houses done. And so it should be more organized than it is, but you're working with contractors. And so a lot of times it's, okay, we're booked on these days for filming, but then on this day, plumbing burst, and I got to run over there and shoot that, right? Like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But the houses in general take 6 months-ish each to get finished. And the time commitment on my part is that we don't identify the houses that we're going to work on until the season has been picked up. And so we get a pickup, and we have 9 months to get it done. And then we have to find the houses, design the houses, and film the process. And so a lot of times there are times when I walk into a house and we're filming the day we closed. And this is like, I've been in it one time before, and that's that. Like, I don't have a design plan in mind. I haven't measured anything. It's all like, well, I think what we're going to do is knock that thing down, and then we're going to do this. And then I'm going to go back to my office until 2 a.m. and start pinning pictures up on my walls and come up with a design plan, and spend, every waking minute designing these all consecutively. So we have 6 boards up in this room here that are, I can kind of show you they're just pin boards. And so all of my projects get pinned up here consecutively. And I have thousands of pictures of ideas that I've liked in the past that I just keep in drawers. And I just start shuffling through and pinning them to each house. Like, this one looks like that one. This one looks like that one. And then that's how the whole thing starts. But my time commitment when we're in filming season is generally filming from 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning until 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then designing after that. I might have 2 to 3 weeks before the season starts filming to work on the designs, but that's only if I'm lucky.
So 14, 15, 16-hour days, something like that.
And weekends and
right. Yeah. 6-7 days a week, doesn't stop. I get that part from a baseball season where it's like, oh, I just got a day off and now it's 19 straight or something like that.
Yep.
It's not necessarily the 15, 16-hour days that you're talking about, but I get the unusual schedule
right
in terms of the rest of the world. So that leads me to the second question. It's very rhetorical because I know the answer without even asking it, but does a day go by where somebody doesn't say to you, hey, my house is fill in the blank?
No, that happens every single day, multiple times a day. And I love it. I'm happy to answer. The problem for me is that, without seeing it yourself, somebody trying to describe well, the kitchen's over here, and like I'm no help without actually seeing the project. And so I hate giving bad advice based on words, right? Like, it's a visual situation. So it's tough for me. I'm like, I can't really, I don't want to give you bad direction when I haven't really seen it.
Yeah. I've got this doctor friend. Hey, my back has been bugging me. What should I do with, like, I haven't seen you yet. But everybody wants their home to be nicer. Everybody, right? And they don't necessarily know how to do it. Hey, we know Tamara. Let's ask her. So yeah, I get that. And ultimately that's a form of flattery, right? I mean, they're respecting your expertise and your opinion. Okay, third question, as we round the bases, it's a family show, and I don't mean that just in appropriate language or anything like that. I mean, your dad is essentially the co-star of the show. Your kids make numerous appearances and are put to work, maybe sometimes begrudgingly because they're teenagers, right? And again, not what I want to go to. Always, yeah. I know. But that has to mean a lot. And I guess this is more of a question about your dad, but where has his status gone? I'm guessing that in his generation, that he certainly wasn't thinking about having an Instagram following and being on TV and all this type of stuff. And he looks like a tough, fun guy that means business. What has this experience been like for him and for the two of you?
I think you hit it on the nail. Like, I don't think he had an Instagram or Facebook account before the show, nor did he understand how to do it. And still some days I'm like, oh, Dad, that's not how you do it. And he'll fix whatever it was. But, I think it's been really fun for him to learn a new thing, right? Like, learn a new career and how things in this, production world work. And I think he's had a lot of fun at it. He's 70 years old and is a very active, like super active. He's the youngest 70-year-old you ever met. And he, works out every day and he's doing stuff every day and he still has his other businesses. And so I think this is just a really fun hobby for him and he's enjoying it and we get to enjoy time together. I wish I could say that when we're filming that we get to sit around and, go out to coffee all the time. It looks like we do a lot of coffees and stuff together and we do, but we're sitting there on camera. We're not really actually talking about life. And so I wish we had a little bit more of that free time when we're filming to really do that. But most of the time when we get a break, I'm back at my computer designing something. Like if we're sitting waiting for camera setups, I'm responding to some problem or answering a question from another house and figuring it out. So I don't get a lot of downtime with him.
Well, if I didn't know otherwise, I would assume he was like 60 because he doesn't look 70 at all. And that's not just because of his skills. He does. He totally looks, and he's got the energy, and there's just such a good chemistry between you. And by the way, I'm just looking at his Instagram. I promoted Tamara's before, Tamara Day. You can follow her. You should. 80,000. He's got 10,700 followers. He's verified, and so you can follow him too, Ward Schrader. But it's a pretty good presence there for a guy that never knew anything about it.
Right?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, he until the past 3 years, he's never touched Instagram, and it took a couple years of this for him to be like, okay, fine, I'll do it, and
he gets it.
He begrudgingly did it, and I think he actually enjoys it more than he'll admit.
but fair enough. All right, final question, the walk-off, two-part question. One, what's coming up next? When do you start shooting again? That's the first part. And the second part is, in an ideal world, is there something you would like to do in terms of television? Maybe it's similar to what you're doing now. Maybe it's something completely out of left field, pardon the baseball pun, but what would be something ideal for you?
I would say what's next is I'm not allowed to talk about, so I can't really say what's next as of yet.
Something.
But good things are coming. Lots of good things. We have not just television. We have a lot of other, I guess I could say, products that are coming to the market very soon, and that I'm very excited about, and I've had my finger on for a long time. I would say, out of left field, what would an ideal thing be? I love to cook, and nobody really knows that. And I'm actually a pretty darn good cook. I mean, I got to feed four kids, right? Yeah. 3 of them are very, very hungry boys. So I'm a pretty good cook and entertainer. So I'd actually love to do a cooking show. I know that sounds crazy, but it sounds a lot easier than fixing up houses, I got to say.
It should be quicker. I mean, although the elements would be all the same, right? In the end, you don't see all the bloopers. You don't see all the things that go wrong. And in the end, it's a beautiful finished product. There's more work than people think. But yes, it sounds like it would be easier. Oh, this one just dawned on me before I let you go too. Have you met Martha Stewart?
I have. And I actually met her before I ever had a show. And I was actually pregnant with my daughter. My cousin, Aaron Stewart, is a designer in Puerto Rico now, but for a decade, he was her creative director in New York for all product development. So he approved everything that had a Martha logo on it for a decade, and then she approved it. And so he was her middle person in that process. And so I went to visit him one time, and he got me front row seats at her show, and we got to sit there and then got the tour of all the offices, saw her office, met her and Kevin Sharkey, and just was such a cool experience.
I'll bet. I was thinking like a Martha Tamara show.
I'm all in, cool. But I'm no
sure
Snoop.
You are.
I'm no Snoop Dogg.
I was going to say, actually, there will never be a better combination, perhaps in terms of the most unthinkable duo of all time,
and yet
Martha
and
Snoop.
Like, they're the best.
I've never met her, but that put her on another level for me because she was as comfortable with him as he was with her. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother episode, I suppose. Right. But this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. And actually, we've seen you pop up a little bit on our Royals broadcast this year, doing the little James B. Nutter spot. I know you're working on some other things too. So hopefully there's a way for us to bring you onto our broadcast to talk about a project that you're working on. But it's fun. I'm sitting there at work and like, hey, there's Tamara doing a little spot that's running on baseball. So see, you're doing some other things too.
I've got lots of things in the works that I'm really enjoying.
I think you always will, and I wish you success with all that. Again, people, check out the Instagram feed. If you're not one of the 80,000, there's always room for growth at Tamara Day, or you can go to tamaraday.com to find out everything that is going on in her world and with the business and the show and whatever else we're not allowed to know about yet. It'll pop up there when the time is right. Tamara, thanks so much for spending time on Rounding the Bases. Great to catch up with you.
Absolutely, Joel. Thanks so much for having me and having so many great questions. This was really fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great one.